Hello and welcome. Sometimes in life we have to deal with difficult, manipulative personalities that we just can't walk away from. Whether it's at work, within our family, or in a co-parenting situation, going no contact just isn't an option. So today, we're going to explore two really powerful psychological defense strategies designed for exactly these situations, the gray rock and yellow rock methods. Let's dive in. And this is the central question, isn't it? You know you're dealing with someone who thrives on conflict, on drama, but you're stuck interacting with them. So how do you protect your own peace, your own energy, when you can't just leave? That is precisely the problem these methods were created to solve. And this brings us right to the heart of the dilemma. In so many situations, like co-parenting after a split, dealing with a difficult boss, or managing interactions with certain family members, communication is mandatory. You can't just ignore them. Cutting ties isn't just hard, it can have serious practical or even legal consequences. This is where strategy becomes absolutely essential. To really get these strategies, you have to understand one crucial concept. Manipulative personalities, especially those with traits we see in cluster B personality disorders, they feed on what some psychologists call narcissistic supply, or to put it simply, emotional fuel. Our reactions, our anger, our frustration, our need to defend ourselves, that's their currency. The entire goal of both gray and yellow rock is to cut off that fuel supply. So let's start with the first, and maybe the most well-known strategy, the gray rock method. The name itself is a perfect description of the goal, which is to become as uninteresting and unengaging as a boring gray rock. The metaphor here is just perfect. Picture a plain gray rock on the side of the road. You wouldn't even notice it. That's the goal. It's about adopting a posture that is so neutral, so unstimulating, that the manipulative person simply loses interest because they're getting zero emotional payoff from you. This isn't about being hostile. It's about being profoundly, deeply boring. So in practice, this means total emotional and verbal lockdown. A useful little mnemonic is to avoid jade, justifying, arguing, defending, or explaining. Instead, you give short, factual answers, and you keep your expression neutral. Crucially, you have to resist the bait when they try to provoke you, because trust me, they will try. Every reaction you give is a gift to them. Of course, it's not a perfect solution. The huge upside is that it starves the manipulator of their fuel, and often they'll just go look for it somewhere else. But it can be incredibly draining to maintain that level of emotional control. And a massive downside is that third parties, people who don't see the dynamic, might just see you as being cold or uncooperative, which can really backfire. And those downsides of gray rock, especially in formal settings, led to a crucial modification, the yellow rock method. Think of it as gray rock, but with a thin coat of varnish. Yellow rocking keeps that same firm, uninteresting core, but it adds a layer of polite, superficial warmth. It was really developed for situations like co-parenting or professional environments where the outright coldness of gray rock could be misinterpreted as hostility and used against you, for example, in a court of law. The key idea here is that in high-stakes situations, the total coldness of gray rock can be twisted to look like hostility and used against you. Appearing civil is a form of protection. You're still a rock, firm and unmoving, but you're a slightly shinier, more socially acceptable rock. So what does this look like in practice? Well, you might start or end an email with a simple, "Thank you." The answers are still short, still to the point, focused only on logistics or facts. You acknowledge what they said with a noted or "I understand," but you don't engage emotionally. You are polite, but you are a wall of pleasantries. The main advantage here is that it's perfect for those situations that demand ongoing communication. It makes it very, very hard for someone to accuse you of being hostile or uncooperative. The downside? It can be absolutely exhausting to keep up that polite facade, and some abusers might see that cordiality as an opening to push for more. Which brings us to the most important question. Which one is right for you? The choice between gray rock and yellow rock depends entirely on your specific context. Look, it really boils down to a few key factors. If contact is infrequent and your only goal is to get the person to go away, gray rock is more direct. But if communication is legally or professionally required and you need a paper trail that shows you've been reasonable, yellow rock becomes your best defense. It's all about matching the tool to the specific job. Now, I have to be clear, neither of these methods is easy. They go against our natural instincts to defend ourselves and connect with others. So let's talk about the real-world challenges you're going to face. This is the single most important thing to prepare for. When you first start using these methods, the manipulative behavior will likely get worse, not better. The person will notice their emotional fuel supply has been cut off, and they will escalate the provocations to try and get a reaction out of you. There is a formal psychological term for this, an extinction burst. It's a predictable pattern where a behavior temporarily increases when its reward, in this case your reaction, is removed. Think about a kid pressing an elevator button. If it suddenly stops working, they don't just walk away. They mash that button faster and harder before they finally give up. Understanding this helps you stay firm through that initial escalation. And here are a few classic traps. Sarcasm is not gray rock. It's just more fuel. Caving in and having an emotional reaction after holding firm for an hour undoes all your hard work. And remember, especially with yellow rock, being polite does not mean being an open book. Keep it brief. Don't feel the need to fill awkward silences. So the bottom line is this. This is not about changing the other person. You can't. This isn't about winning an argument. The one and only goal is to disengage and protect your own energy and your mental well-being. You are taking back control by choosing not to play their game. And that leaves us with a final thought. Recognizing the dynamic is the first step. The next is making a conscious choice. So what's the first small step you can take in your very next interaction to start protecting your energy and becoming a rock?